Next we've got Alex Stacey here representing UK Sport. Now today we've talked a lot about the foundations, physical literacy, early years right through and creating the foundation for life for people to be active. But let's not forget, this country is known for its sporting prowess. We are proud of our Olympians, our Paralympians, and it's about people achieving their potential. But we have to support and engage to help young people who have the opportunity and the potential to become our great elite athletes to do so. So Alex is going to be speaking about UK Sports Talent ID and development programme, their role within that, but also the role that we all play out in our community is to help sort of feed that system. So please welcome Alex Stacey. Thank you.
That nerve-wracking bit when you get to the stage, you think, I hope my slides are up there. Just before I start, and I probably think an important point, and thank you for that introduction, Yvonne, just to kind of bring us back to kind of why I'm here. I'd just like you to share in twos or threes a really memorable sporting moment that you've had. That can be spectating or playing. So just spend a couple of minutes sharing in twos or threes what was a particularly memorable sporting moment for you, whether that's Olympic, Paralympic, professional sport, or something that you've actually participated in. 2 minutes, just share that, please. Okay, ladies and gents, I'm glad that has created a little bit of buzz. Brilliant. And can I ask you to continue those conversations at lunch? Because there's obviously much more to be discussed, which is fantastic. The reason that I ask people to sort of talk about some of those memories is because often there'll be a really positive association with that link to that particular memory. Sometimes, not always, it isn't great, but at the same time it just puts us into a different place, and I could just hear from the volume in the room and the struggle that I had to get everybody back in that actually there were some obviously really good discussions and some emotions around that as well. And I suppose that explains a little bit of my journey as to how I got into the role and where I work now, which I'm incredibly fortunate to do. So I remember sitting in my grand's front room watching the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, and it happened to be when Sally Gunnell won gold. And I remember watching this race, 400-metre hurdles, thinking, she's going to get beat, she's going to get beat. Sandra Farmer-Patrick's going to get back, she's going to beat her. And actually, it was an amazing race, and I watched it again actually last night. And to watch someone at their best, and then more importantly, to hear about their story and the history of where Sally had come from, and the support that she'd had, and athletics, and starting off at school, and then seeing her victory lap with her parents, her coach, etc. Those are the kind of really important people that are in the sort of stands, and that's what gripped me. And it was only when my gran came in, she said, "What's wrong with you?" And I saw tears streaming down my face, and I thought, oh, this is really what I want to do. I want to work in sport. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I was 10 at the time. Shows my age. However, that was really, really important to me, and you can tell it's a memory now that I still sort of hold on to. And now when I come to sort of share where I've got to and talk a little bit about the organisation that I'm super proud to work for, it's kind of where I like to start because it's a hugely positive experience for me. So in terms of sport in the UK, and I'm not going to teach you anything you don't know, but I'd like to set the scene a little bit because I feel my 10 minutes with yourselves will be probably a little bit different. I'm going to share a case study and hopefully show you a little bit of information about how we have looked to understand talent identification, talent development in what is a very challenging and complex area. So there are broadly, and very broadly speaking, sort of 3 levels, I would say, to sport in the UK. When I started my role, someone showed me a little bit of a spaghetti diagram of sport in the UK, and so this has been a really helpful reference point for me to kind of understand whereabouts I'm orientating to. So I just wanted to start and say, look, this is kind of how I will be describing where UK sport sits at the moment, and that's kind of almost where I wanted to ensure that you guys could have just a bit of a reference point. So I'm a hockey player by trade. I started playing hockey at school. I then was fortunate enough to be selected into Honiton Hornets second 11, so I played a lot of club hockey down in Devon, and then I was non-travelling reserve, that wonderful position for the west of England. So that's my background. And just to make sure that you're very clear that I didn't make it into the top bit, but I definitely learnt my trade. So in terms of UK sport and the role it does and provides to high-performance sport, it is the strategic funding agency for elite sport. It receives its funding from the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. It then allocates that funding to sports. Sports will submit a strategy and a budget for a 4-year cycle. They will very clearly talk about where do we intend to go over 4 years? And that is what is the compelling vision of success for them, and that's what is then invested in. So that's how the money then goes into sports, and I think that was just an important sort of reference point for you guys just to share how that works from a UK sport perspective. Our driving force and the reason that I come to work is to inspire the nation through Olympic and Paralympic success. And certainly when I thought about the presentation, the summary that I wanted to share with you guys today, it was around about how do I talk about some of the investment that comes from public money from DCMS that we try to ensure makes a difference to our elite performance levels, the success that we've had and the success that we will continue to have, but also enabling young people to fulfill their potential in whatever sport. And I've got a case study that I'll share with you at the end just to kind of bring that to life. So that's a little bit about how UK sport receives funding from the government, how that then is channeled into sports, and more importantly, how it's effectively then given over to the sports to fund our high potential achievers of the future. And those people are going to go on to be super successful in what they do. Supporting that, and again, I'm sure some of you may have seen this, you may have a really good understanding of it, but I didn't want to make a general assumption, so I thought it was important just to share a little bit around what the elite UK Sport Performance Pathway looks like, and hopefully provide you with a little bit of a kind of framework or model that we share with sports when we talk to them from a UK sport perspective. So here you'll see it's the Brownlee brothers, triathletes, starting off on their journey, and then obviously they've gone on to be quite successful in what they've done. So in terms of the base of the pyramid, and I suppose the most important, kind of why we're all here, isn't it? That's where our talent pool comes from. The roles that all of yourselves, your organisations, your schools, the education authorities that you work with is super important. And I think one of the things that I sense, before I came in today, is we know that there is a shrinking talent pool. There's lots of competitions for young people's time, and I've been doing quite a lot of work, and I'm very interested for the next presentation about next generation and supporting young people of today and tomorrow, because obviously they have a huge amount of opportunity at their fingertips, and often that means that's where it is, and it's sat like this, looking down, rather than trying to think about, well, what could I do outwardly, what could I do physically, and I think that's what we're all talking about today. One of the key things that UK Sport has looked to really actively support, certainly post-London 2012, was our athlete engagement. So when athletes came back from the Games and they've been super successful, really unprecedented success from London 2012 and then repeated in Rio, there was a real opportunity to connect with communities through those athletes. And since 2012, there have been 27,000 athlete appearances going out, sharing what they've done. So from a hockey playing perspective, the girls, when they'd won gold in Rio, they actively went out and spoke to numerous schools, and you could see it on social media, you could see it through other channels, and I think that's a really great example of where young people see the importance of giving back. The hockey girls in particular, they wanted to inspire, they wanted to create a legacy, and they wanted to create a memory as well. And I think they've lived that and are living that. And what a great, great opportunity for that particular sport. It's one example, you all have your own as well. But that's where something has really captured on and hopefully provided other young people who maybe hadn't thought in the same way about what sport could offer them a real insight into what that looks like, because they could see that role model. And I know we've heard a number of people mention the value of role models. I feel that is the most beneficial thing that we can provide young people with. Here's what it could look like, here's how someone else has done it, and here's them telling you in their own words, which I think is really, really important. So in terms of just looking at this diagram and moving up, the role of myself and the team and UK Sport sits at the podium potential level. We also actively engage at performance foundations. Again, as I said earlier, that's where the talent pool and the young people coming through are very much based at the minute, and will be as we go on. But it is, and I suppose I'm really keen, there are a couple of things just to point out, and Jack, you said this earlier, success or achievement or progression is not a linear journey, and we absolutely know that. So whilst I pop up this particular reference point, I think it's important to say that the squiggle that we all go through is absolutely very real, very live, and certainly in my role in terms of talent development, talent identification, recruitment, I know that is absolutely the case. We also know that people will mature at different rates. They'll have different transitions they go through from a social, emotional, physical perspective, and therefore that's what makes the role of understanding where people might want to get to or where they might want to achieve their potential even more challenging. But on the flip side, what a great opportunity and how exciting to work in that space, and that's exactly why I enjoy what I do. So in terms of the talent identification and development process, I just wanted to share with you a couple of phases, I suppose, about how we would describe this from a UK sport perspective. So there's a talent recruitment phase, and this wouldn't be any different to how we recruit people into our organisations, where we say, look, these are the skill sets, the characteristics, the profile of what we're looking for, and then we would have an assessment of where a young person or a young person coming into our organisation would be in terms of those particular characteristics and behaviours at that time. From a UK sport perspective, and when I was thinking about the sessions today, I kind of wanted to share with you that we also run a number of schemes around talent identification and talent transfer. And one of the strategies that we took pre-2007 was to actually look at how we recruit people from different sports who maybe hadn't thought of trying a particular sport to maybe fill a talent gap or give that young person an opportunity they may not have otherwise had. So we would go out, and this took a little while of thinking about, and we hadn't done it before, but we would go out and actively ask the general public to put forward themselves to be nominated to be part of one of our UK-wide recruitment campaigns. So whilst the talent recruitment element is happening all the time, it's been happening in sports for much longer than I've been around, the talent identification and the talent transfer has been slightly more challenging for some of the sports to manage, and we felt we could add value to that. So in 2007, we started looking at how we could do these much broader UK-wide recruitment campaigns that maybe could encourage young people to take up an opportunity they hadn't had. Along the top row is then how we would deliver that particular talent identification campaign, in terms of there would be some generic testing that all of the young people have the opportunity to do. There would then be some sport-specific testing based on what we'd seen at the assessment phase. That young person would then have the opportunity to confirm whether they'd like to carry on and whether they'd like to carry on with a specific sport. And they would then make that transition into the development programme for that particular sport. And then, subject to them wanting to continue, it being right for them, it being right for the sport, they would then continue into that world-class programme. No worries. And then I suppose the really important bit was just to give you an example of someone who's been through that process, who's had that experience. So this lady came in 2007. She was one of 4,500 applicants, sat in a room with 200 people at Bisham and said, I really, really want to do this. A colleague of mine said, look, there could be a future gold medalist here. And Helen, true to what she's gone on to do, was that person who said, I really want that to be me. So Helen Glover then went through the rowing test, and that was the particular sport that she found an aptitude for. She then went on a very accelerated journey. In the first, I think, 4 months, she'd had her domestic win. She then went on in the first 18 months to have her to gain a national title, and then her first senior international at 33 months. And that was from a person who hadn't considered rowing at all. She came from an athletics hockey background. She's since gone on to win a gold medal at London 2012. She was the first female rowing gold medal and also the first gold medal of the Games. And she also got a subsequent gold medal at Rio as well. So a real success there. And I don't think I've got time for my question, but I did have one, because I actually did want to ask your help. Have I got a minute just to ask the question?
Yeah, I'm really sorry.
No worries. Right on.
I'm so sorry. Do you want the question? Yeah. Ask the question. Go on. Go on.
Okay. It shouldn't take too long. I am really super keen, from all of the talks and the conversations I've heard this morning, just to find out a little bit more how we enable more young people to come into contact with our recruitment campaigns. We've worked really hard to understand how we best engage young people, but if you can just get out your dabbers. I hope the question is, it should be on the thing. So hopefully, I'm hoping the gentleman at the chap at the back, you can pick one of those, and it should flash up. If it doesn't, please do come and find me. My Twitter handle is @AlecStacey1, so it's quite straightforward. And my details are with the organisers. But I am really super keen to understand how we connect more young people with the opportunities that we've got. Don't worry. Thank you very much for listening anyway.